Hi, this is Brooks with Character Design Forge. There's a lot of information to cover in this video, so I'm going to set up a little sidebar along here so you can follow along with what subtopic we're talking about. Now, usually the focus of this channel is all things artistic and creative when it comes to character design and art. But one of the most frequently asked questions I get from you is the title of this video. So how do you become a character designer? Some people are even one step removed from that, asking me personally, saying, well, I see you talking about and making a lot of character design related things. Is it something you can actually make a living from? Well, yes, I do, and you can as well. Making money and a respectable living from artwork is a very valid and real opportunity. And on one hand, it isn't necessarily easy by any means. On the other, it isn't necessary to resort to a starving artist cliche where you're working for free or for minimum wage. So also in this video, I want to talk a little bit about respecting yourself and valuing your work from a business standpoint when it comes to being a professional. So there are several ways that you can make a living as an artist. The first is as an employee with long-term work at one company. Now, usually you'll be reporting to an art director or someone else in charge who will be providing you with work and direction, and you might be working along with a team or on a specific project for a long period of time. The second career is the position that I'm currently in, which is as a freelance artist. I am a freelance character designer. You might also call this a temporary contractor. So as a freelancer, I receive work from someone, from a client, and I'll work with them on it for a day, a few days, maybe a few weeks, depending on the scope of the project, and afterwards we part ways. I do have a lot of repeat clients who come back to me with more work, but at the same time, those clients are not responsible for providing me with work if they don't have a need for it, because I'm not their employee. Now, also because I'm not their employee, I can dictate a lot more terms. So as long as I'm delivering what I said I would at the time that I said I would, they aren't really dictating the hours that I spend on the project or how I get it done. Now, I guess the third career is a little bit of a spin-off of the freelance artist. This is the audience-supported artist. So instead of working for a client or a client base, you have a large enough audience that's able to support you financially, either through products, through subscription services, or even less likely these days through advertising revenue. So how do you get one of these jobs? Well, it isn't necessarily easy, like we said, and there's no real path of least resistance or a way to instantly get one of these careers. It usually takes a few years. But in this video, we'll focus on those first two, how to get work as an employee or a freelance artist. Now, ideally, you want clients or companies to be coming to you, or you're cold calling some agencies or studios that are reputable. So in both of these cases, they'll need to be aware of you. You're going to need to be doing all of the legwork up front as far as marketing yourself. So how do you market yourself? Well, it's important to have a strong portfolio showcasing the kind of work that you want to be doing. Now, this isn't hundreds of sketches and half-finished pieces. This is a curated small collection of finished professional work. This also means that as you improve and get better at your art, you're going to want to cycle out the older pieces that maybe don't measure up to your current level of quality. Now, generally speaking, the work that you put in your portfolio is the kind of work that you're going to get. So you kind of want to dress for the job that you want. There's a lot of portfolio solutions online, so I won't get into that too much, but a simple portfolio page that you build yourself, or a Dribbble, Behance, or ArtStation page could make for a good portfolio. I would avoid making a DeviantArt page your portfolio. That's just because DeviantArt is kind of like the Mos Eisley Cantina in a lot of ways. You also want to show that you're the kind of person that people want to work with, so interacting online in a kind and professional manner goes a long way toward making people want to work with you. On the other hand, doing things like oversharing about life, or complaining, or having an overall negative attitude adds some friction. Can you imagine someone wanting to work with you and then going to your Twitter page and seeing 30 tweets in a row complaining about being in line at the DMV? Or even worse, can you imagine them seeing you complaining about working with another client? That adds a lot of friction and it pushes people away. And even if you aren't sharing your real name or a picture of yourself online, you still want to make it clear that you are a person and you aren't necessarily acting in character somehow. Again, the aim here is to be professional. The best way to stay relevant is to keep sharing new art. Now, this might be personal work or a client project that you've either finished up or it's okay to post. Again, if you're really serious about being an artist and a professional artist, you're going to continue making new art no matter what. Now, all of this time, you're building up a portfolio and a presence, either online or in person. Don't discount the effectiveness of marketing yourself in person. There's a lot of local work, and just because we live in the age of the internet doesn't mean there isn't a lot of work available offline. Now, it's very likely that it will be a while before you get your first client, and a while after that before you get your second. So I would advise you to stick with a day job in the meantime. Of course, it's frustrating. You really want to get into work as an artist, but you don't want to quit too early and maybe take on the wrong clients or starve to death. As much as you may not like your day job, it is fueling your artwork, which we've talked about before, and it's fueling your stomach and paying your rent. It's doing a lot of good. And if you go into this with an attitude of, well, I'm an artist, I'm too good for work, you're going to have a bad time when you realize that making artwork professionally is hard work, even if the difficulty is mental and not physical. So developing a good work ethic as soon as you can is always a good idea. Now you've been improving, you have the best pieces in your portfolio, and finally someone reaches out to you with work. So if this is a long-term position or as an employee, you're obviously going to consider this with the amount of weight that kind of decision has. But there are a lot of things that you need to keep in mind to value yourself and protect yourself if this is client work or work as a freelancer. Now, the first thing that you aren't going to do is go diving on freelancing sites where clients post job listings and then artists bid on those listings. Now, a lot of people defend these sites and say, well, you just have to weed through the bad projects to get to the good ones. The problem with this is that 99% of the time, the client is going to go with the lowest bidder. Now, that means that overall, you've lowered the value of your work and the industries as a whole by saying this is all it costs to make this artwork. The other reality is, especially if you're in North America or Europe, is that we generally just have a higher cost of living than in other parts of the world. So on these job sites, it's a global economy, which means someone can compete with you for the work at a far lower price because for them that might be an entire day's wage. For you, it might be less than minimum wage. So enough about those sites. Feel free to form your own opinions about them. For me personally, I've only had negative and extremely negative experiences with them. So if you want to say it can't possibly be as bad as it seems, you want to try it out for yourself, just proceed at your own risk. The second thing, and I think this is the most important, is to stay wary and protective of yourself while remaining friendly, kind, and professional. Unfortunately, when you're screening new clients, a few bad people ruin it for the rest of the otherwise great clients. So it's almost like you have to treat it like you're walking alone in New York City at 3 a.m. My personal policy is to receive at least some form of payment upfront. So this is 25% to 100% of the total cost. You also need to make sure that you are paid in full by the client before you deliver them the final artwork. Now, obviously, you want to give them proof that you've done the work. So generally what I'll do is provide a small screenshot of the work at a low resolution, maybe with a watermark over it, and send that as proof along with the final invoice. And then once they've paid in full, you can send them the finished work. This isn't you being distrustful of the client at all. It's simply a policy that you've put in place to protect yourself. All businesses have policies. I've made the mistake of not being careful in this area before, and it's cost me. I'll probably talk about it in another video. You also want to make it clear, if it isn't already, that your time is valuable and your work has value. So the client isn't just paying you for your time, but also your experience and expertise. So you may want to lay out for them what's involved with your work and how time intensive it is. It also means that up front you should be deciding whether or not there will be changes or iterations made to the work that you're doing and build that into the price. Sometimes when I'm collaborating with a client and not simply doing the work for them, or I'm working with an art director who has some pre-existing ideas, we'll plot out ahead of time how many iterations or changes I'm planning on making, and that way I can charge them accordingly. What you don't want is to not do this and then have a client who's continuing to make little changes and saying it would look better like this and then change it back, because that can be a real drain on your time. And really that client isn't trusting you to be a designer. It's different for each situation, but more often than not, I'm actually able to say to the client, you know, you're bringing me on as the character designer. We'll talk extensively up front about what this needs to be, what this work should be. You know, make sure you've communicated a lot, but after I've done the work, there will be no iterations or changes. What I make is what I make. That might surprise you to know that you can do that. It just depends on the situation. Well, this is a ton of material, and there's still a lot more that goes into an art career or making a living as a freelancer, so I'll likely talk about those more in an upcoming video. One idea that I have is the 5 biggest mistakes that I've made in my career, so stay tuned for that. Of course, again, the focus of this channel isn't on careers or money or anything like that. It's on the creativity and the artistic side of things, but I wanted to show you and talk about some of the realities that come with a career. That's it for me today. I'm making new videos every week at Character Design Forge, subscribing on YouTube like over 25,000 of you have done. My goodness, thank you. That will let you know when new videos are made available. My course, Designing Game Characters, will be released in the next few months, and this will actually be a free update for the Learn Character Design course, which is a comprehensive character design curriculum. Head over to learncharacterdesign.com and sign up to be notified when Designing Game Characters becomes available. Thank you for watching, and have fun creating.